Hello, hello. If you don't know, my name is Chris Handler, and I'm the pastor of Community 618. It's a church that my family and I are starting. And we're doing so because as we looked around the community, we realized that there wasn't a lot of good options for families or for individuals that have to work on the weekends. There's no church that is really accessible for that situation. That and for other families that like us have kids that like to play travel sports, and so they're busy on a lot of weekends. And so we wanted to create a place. We wanted to create a home for people that for whatever reason that their weekends are tied up. And so we're starting this with or with having in mind that we're not meeting on Sunday mornings right now. We're meeting on Sunday afternoons when we get to have an in-person meeting. And the weeks that we don't, we're still going to put some materials out there, and we're just calling those online only events. Now, we would love for you to join us sometime, but we get it. Feel free to check us out online as long as you want to, or as long as you need to. We've just come to realize, and we're trying to accept and be realistic about the fact that it's a weird time to be alive. And so, if you want to connect with us, I imagine that you found this either on the YouTube page or the Facebook page. It's just Community 618, all one word. Um, Feel free to private message me, or the email for that we have set up for this is mycommunity618 at gmail.com. And so I would love if you would reach out, and I would love to grab a cup of coffee and talk with you or answer any questions that you might have about life, about the Bible, about faith, about what the Christian, about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And yeah, I hope I get to hear from you very, very soon. Now, last night we had our first in-person meeting, and I would say we had technical difficulties, but what we actually had was the user of the technology was having difficulties. And while I thought that I had done my research and practice getting everything set up, I blew it. And so I wanted to re-record our inaugural Bible study, our sermon, and get this back out there, because we had several people that came last night that said that they really wished that was going to be accessible because they had family members or somebody that they wanted to be able to hear what we talked about. And we simply talked about this the idea of creating a world worth living in. Now, I don't remember where I heard that quote. I want to say it was from like maybe the BBC Sherlock Holmes, and Watson was asking Sherlock, why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep fighting? Why do you keep putting yourself at danger? And that was the reply. I want to create a world that's worth living in. I may have had it from a different show completely, because I went looking for that and I can't find the episode. I can't find the quote. I've tried to Google it. I've looked all over the place. But wherever I heard, maybe I dreamed it one night, but it's just stuck with me. And this is this our Bible study that we're starting right now, and we're just calling it a Bible study because we're not singing, we're not doing a lot of the other things that churches do yet, just because we're starting very small. It's a grassroots effort. And my wife and I, we've tried this a couple of different times in a couple of different ways. If you don't know, our family, we have a 16-year-old son, and then a 14-year-old daughter, almost 15. We have two little ones, a 5 and a 4-year-old. And when the older two were the younger two's age, what we did was I've always coached in what in the community. It's called the Tri City sports, and I've coached soccer and t-ball, just as a way to be able to serve our community and to give kids a positive experience as they're just getting started out with sports. And so and when Caleb and Haley were little, we used those teams and began to reach out to those families and invite them to come to our house for what we call the kids church. And we've built some wonderful friendships over the years because of where we started there. What we called that initially was our HIT Club, HIT, HIT Club. And it was our Heroes in Training. That was my weird take from the movie Fight Club. And so we would come and we would talk, and we would talk about how even at that young age, right, that you're perfectly capable, and you can make a difference in your community. You can make a difference in your classroom. You can make a difference on your team, but it doesn't require you being an adult. It doesn't require you. It just requires you having a big faith in yourself and believing that you can make a difference in the world. And so what I like to joke that what I wanted to call it was not heroes in training, but superheroes in training, but for a church thing and for a kids thing. The acronym did not work out well. Right? We could say, "Welcome to the Friday night." You'll get there eventually, or "Welcome to the club or the show." I get it. I get it. But we started there, and like I said, we've built some wonderful friendships. Some of the kids are still in our life, and but after doing that for a year or two, we had a family thing that happened and had to back off of that for a while, and we spent a few years healing, and then when Caleb and Haley were a little bit older, and Gwenny and Willow had come along, they were a little bitty. We started a youth group in our house, and we were just reaching out to, again, some of the same kids that had come to the heroes in training to our hit club, and also some new friends that our kids had made. We'd been on more teams, and we'd coached more sports. We did Tri-City for a while, and then we started some travel teams. And so we began to reach out to some of the new families, and again, we've made some wonderful friendships. And I hope that some of them hope that they come across this message, and I hope that they show up to one of our in-person events. But after we got that going, we would have anywhere from around 4 to a couple of times we had close to 30 teenagers in our house, and we would just talk about how, kind of the same thing, you can make a difference. You can make the world better. You don't have to respond like your friends do. We talked a lot about emotional intelligence and learning how to be kind even when people weren't being kind towards you. And so we had a lot of fun with that. And then COVID hit. So we had to shut that down, at least temporarily. And so now this is our next attempt at it. Stuff keeps happening every time that we try to start something. And ironically, as we announced this and as I began talking about it, the hurricane hit my mother-in-law's house in Florida. And so fortunately, she was up here with us at the time. But we got to spend some time serving her and loving on her. And but it's crazy every time that Kim and we've tried to, and I know it's not because of us. I know stuff just happens, and it rains on everybody. But it's been a weird experience for us. But we're super excited to be doing this. And just a real quick aside, I forgot to say that if you will follow, like, share, I'm not sure what the right terminology is, our Facebook page, Community 618, at the very top of the feed, it's got a list of dates to where we are actually in person, and then when we're online only. And so I think we were in person last night, and then the next 2 weeks we're online only, and then we're in person for 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row, and then there's a online only, and then up until almost Christmas we're in person. I look forward to the day that we grow and we've got enough people to be able to meet in person only, even when I can't be there. But like you, I'm busy. I've got some obligations at other churches over the next few weeks that I'm so excited about. And some of the weeks we're just busy. Like I said, we've got a couple of super athletes that I love being able to go to their events. And so I'm excited to do something like this because I just want to set that precedent to let you know that it's okay. sometimes you're just going to miss church. And so, but in spite of that, we do still need community. So we're doing this, and as I said earlier, I hope that you reach out. Now, like I said, we're talking about this idea of creating a world worth living in. Now, when I was a kid, I was convinced that I was born during the wrong time period. My heart, my mind, I was always fascinated with the medieval time period. And even maybe a step past that, just kind of like that fantasy fiction, where there was wizards and dragons and knights, and there was a code of honor that the knights had, and they were chivalrous. And then as I just my library and is it's vast with that type of literature. It's always captivated me. But as I got a little bit older, I realized I don't know if I might have been watching like um, Lord of the Rings or something like that, and I remember pausing it. And I'm sorry for the imagery, but I went to the bathroom, and I realized I actually don't think that I was designed to live during the medieval time. I like indoor plumbing, and I like electricity, and I like amenities. Right? Kim and I's idea of camping, and I'm so happy that we agree on this, is staying at a Holiday Inn versus a nicer hotel. Like I like the amenities. I'm good with that. I know some of you guys. I've got a lot of friends that are hunters, and while I'm a little curious about it, I don't think I want to get involved with it. And so what I realized was it wasn't necessarily the medieval setting that I was attracted to or captivated by. It was the values that the heroes would always carry. And they had a brokenness about them, but to watch them in their weakness and in their brokenness to still act with courage, or to still act with compassion, or to still fight, even though that they knew that the odds were overwhelming towards them. But they had a desire that they wanted to stand up, and they wanted to protect people that couldn't protect themselves. And as I looked around, and especially during that after, not so much before Kim and I had kids, but definitely after we had kids, I began to look around and go, this isn't the world that I want them to grow up in. In fact, in a lot of ways, I'm scared for them. And then you come to things like social media, and you hear about some of the injustices that are done in the world, and it's terrifying. And so we wanted to create a place, for lack of a better word, to combat the direction that the world's going into. We wanted to create a place that values some different things. See, it's not ironic that the world that Jesus came into whenever he was born, it was a mess. There was a division that was going on. There was might makes right. Right? If you're stronger, if you can take it, it's yours. There's no law against this. Jesus's people, the Hebrew nation, the Jewish nation, Israel, at the time Jesus was born, was under Roman Rome occupied uh, Jerusalem, and Jesus's people were basically under legalized humiliation. The Rome had decreed that as long as they didn't leave a mark, they could come up and they could slap you on the face. And you've probably heard the expression "turn the other cheek." It comes from something that Jesus said. If they come up and they slap you on one cheek, give them the other cheek as well. That was perfectly legal under the Roman rule at that time. You've probably heard the phrase, go the extra mile. That came from something else that Jesus said. Rome could grab one of Jesus's people and say, look, my horse is tired. You're going to carry the pack for it. And Roman soldiers could make anybody that they chose carry their stuff for a mile. Not any farther than that, but up to a mile. And so it was just kind of this legalized humiliation that Jesus's people were suffering in. And as I said, that was divisive. They were it was that their religious system was corrupt. Their political system was corrupt. Might makes right. They were under this legalized humiliation. The whole system, it was just a mess. Does this sound familiar? On one occasion, there was this group of religious people that were they couldn't figure out Jesus. And these people, they should have been behind him. They should have been his biggest cheerleaders. They should have been patting him on the back. They should have been the people that did everything that they could to help him along the way, to help him advance his mission. And but they weren't. They were threatened by him because they were the religious leaders, and people were instead not going to them, but they were actually going to Jesus, to get needs met, to get healing. They were going to Jesus to hear his teachings. They became the Pharisees, the religious leaders, became threatened by Jesus, and so they looked for opportunities to harass him. They looked for opportunities to try and trap him in his words. You see that all through Jesus' story. Um, if you got a Bible, that would be the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They were nonstop about this, and they got to a point to where they hated him. And I'm sure that you've heard before, whether you are a follower of Jesus or not, they eventually killed him because of some of these traditions and because of some of their own insecurity, and then wanting to act like they were better than everybody else and more holier than now. They eventually killed him for some of the things that he did that stood in contrast to what they were doing. And so there was one encounter though that I want to start, uh, just this kind of this idea and talking about. And if you got a Bible, it's in the book of Matthew. It's in chapter 15, and we're going to start with verse 10. If you need to, the great thing about being online right now is you can hit pause and go to it, and flip open to it. Now, if you're not familiar with the Bible, I just want to tell you a couple of quick things real fast. If you have one, an actual, paper Bible, you can go to at the very beginning, there's a table of contents. If you're not familiar with the Bible, that's going to be the most important page for you as you're trying to listen and follow along. You can go there, and like I said, the book of Matthew, and it tells you right where to go, and then you just find chapter 15 in the verse. If you don't have a Bible like this, you go to your app store. You can type in Bible, and there's you can download one to your phone or to your iPad, and I would recommend looking for the one. There's one that's got, I want to say, about 8 million downloads. It's the number is just way significant, way more than any of the other ones that are on there. But find that one. It's very user friendly. It's free, and it's got a bunch of different translations. And I've had a couple of people say that they're just kind of unfamiliar with the Bible. Over the next few weeks, we're going to put out a series of videos, probably sometime in the midweek, that just talk about what the Bible is, how to use the Bible, and how we can apply it to our lives. And so if you're interested in that, be looking for it. We're going to get to that in the very near future. Back to our story. So there was this group of people, that the Pharisees, and they were just harassing Jesus. They were looking for a reason to accuse him. They were looking for a reason to turn the people against him. They were looking for a reason to discredit him. And on one occasion, they catch Jesus. He and his disciples show up to this meal, and they begin to eat. Now, in their society, there was this custom, especially for the religious leaders, the rabbis. There was this thing called ceremonial washing, and it was. And if you pray before your meal, I'm not trying to pick on you, but it's one of those things. It was similar to that. Now, at our house, there's nothing wrong with praying before you eat. It's a lot of followers of Jesus do it. For me, when I first became a follower of Jesus, and I would pray before a meal, it would make me feel all kinds of awkward. It would make me feel like I was showing off. It would create some weird situations, and so it's just never been something. And not to mention also, when the food hits the table, it's not really the most sincere prayer. It's like, get this over with. I'm ready to chow down. And so it's just never something it's been a value to me. And so when I see it, I have to watch myself and not project my stuff onto other people because uh, the evil side of me, I look at it and I wonder, is that really sincere right now, or are they just showing off a little bit? And I know they're not. And I know I've eaten with some of you guys, and you guys do that. And I'm so happy that that's a tradition for you. But that's what this was for those people. It was their way of saying, look, we're holier than you guys are. This is one of the ways that we show it. We're going to create this classification called ceremonial clean. And Jesus, your disciples didn't do it. So obviously, you don't love God as much as we do. We take this thing seriously. We take this tradition seriously. And we want everybody around here to see us do this thing. And so they're accusing Jesus. And this is his reply. He says in John 15, again, starting in verse 10, Jesus called the crowd to him and said, listen and understand. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, right? It doesn't make them unclean. That's the point that he's trying to make. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but what comes out of their mouth, that's what defiles them. And then down in verse 17, he says, don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? But the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart. These defile them. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, and slander. These are what defile a person. But eating with unwashed hands, that doesn't defile them. See, the religious leaders of Jesus' day, the people that were trying to trap Jesus, they were going, look, obviously you shouldn't pay attention to Jesus because he's doing something that's defiling. And Jesus goes, no, 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 no. You don't understand. It's not about how you view me. It's about what's inside of me. And it's not about how people view you. It's about what's inside of you. See, maybe a silly illustration, but I had coffee earlier, recording this kind of late at night. But I got water inside of this now. But if you were to bump me, right, physically, I'm going to spill water on you. I'm going to get it on myself. I'm going to get a bit on you. But the reality is, we bump each other metaphorically all the time. The way that Kim and I talk about it is that in our family, I'm constantly trying to be the hero. And so I get up and I go to work every day. Kim, she's trying to be the hero. She's taking care of the kids. She's getting them to school. She's taking care of, she's holding the fort down. She's keeping our finances in order. And so, I'm trying to be the hero. She's trying to be the hero. We're trying to teach our kids to go in your classroom, look for kids that need a friend, go be that friend, go be a friend. Look for kids that are having a bad day, go try and cheer them up. But what I've come to realize is that as I'm trying to be a hero in my life, sometimes it makes me the villain in somebody else's story. So if I go out and I run a small business, I fix rock chips and windshields, and I do it primarily through car lots that are out there. If I need to set up new business because we're having a rough time, or because of things like COVID that happened, and so I'm out selling. Whenever I set up new business, I'm taking business from somebody else. So I've gone to car lots and I've shown them the type of work that I do, and they decide that they want to use me, which means they're not using that guy anymore. And he doesn't even know me, and he hates me. And it's very frustrating, because I didn't do anything to him, but I've bumped him. And so we can, and sometimes we intentionally bump people, sometimes we metaphorically bump them. I told the story the other night. My wife and I, we love to go Black Friday shopping. I don't know why we got in the habit. I guess before we had kids, we didn't have. I mean, we were broke, ridiculously broke, like college broke. And so we would go out, and this is where we would do our Christmas shopping. Um, and we would fight the crowds. And it's just become kind of a tradition for us that we still, on that night, that we go out, and sometimes we buy stuff and sometimes we don't. But it's our annual. We're going to go out and have fun, and sometimes we catch a movie. We always end it at Denny's, and it's just I love spending that time with her. But there was one night that we went out, and we had waited in line at Target, I think in Edwardsville, forever. And we were getting into the store, and we're kind of, we're all being herded in like cattle. And so it's, everything's tight. And all of a sudden I feel a cart hit me in the back of my legs. And so I look back, and it's like maybe a 12-year-old kid. And he's like, and I'm thinking, okay, it's late. We're all tired. I need to control what's going on here. And all of a sudden I feel him bump me again. And so I kind of look over my shoulder, and he looks at me and he goes, huh. And I'm thinking, what is going on? And then he hits me again. And this is not one of my better moments. But my thought is, I know they'll never find his body, right? It's just, I was physically bumped, and I was at the end of my ropes with it. Sometimes we physically bump people. Sometimes we metaphorically bump people. And the thing that that if you're like me, what you struggle with is when somebody bumps me, what I want to do is I want to bump them back. I want to be able to spill my stuff all over them and still believe, yeah, I'm a good person. I want to I want to have, if someone bumps me, I want to bump them back. And I want to believe that the message is just between the two of us. But if you're paying attention at all, that's not the case. Because every time somebody bumps you and you bump them back, you go and tell 27 people about it, and all of a sudden, this mess that was between you guys, you've affected tons of people with it. Or if it happened at work, and you come home and you were bumped at work, and you come home and you bring that stuff to your family, and all of a sudden, the guy spilt on you, you spilt on them, and now you're spilling all over your kids. You bring that frustration, you bring that anger. And so, Jesus said that it's not what goes into your body that defiles you; it's what you allow to come out of it. See, I'm gonna say something that's gonna be like, right? What comes out of you is what's inside of you, right? I know that's real brilliant, but what comes out of you is what's inside of you. So what we have to do is we have to be careful what we allow to grow inside of us, right? Whenever I am bumped, I can respond in turn and bump back with anger or frustration or disrespect. Or I can do is what we're going to talk about here in a second. I can bump back in a different manner. I get to choose. We know this in different realms, right? When we play sports, or we watch our kids play sports. I love watching my son play baseball, and my daughter play basketball and tennis, and she's going to try bowling and track and softball. She's always doing something. My little ones do gymnastics, and they're getting ready to start our one plays soccer. Right? We're always on a baseball field. We're always on a court or a field, or we're always somewhere. And but I know when they're having a bad day, or when they're feeling bad about themselves, in the same way that you do. The shoulders drop, the head might drop, they get real short with their teammates. And it's and while they want to believe that it's just them, as well as I do, they're spilling all over the place. And so we have conversations from the sidelines. I tell my kids, pick your head up. I tell them to smile, because smiling, it releases the tension in your shoulders. It creates some positive stuff going on inside your body. And so there's little things that we begin to cue them in on, that if they'll do a couple of things, you can change your mood, pretty quickly. You can respond differently. You don't have to spill negativity all over the place, right? It's when you get a wound, you're told to watch it. Haley was playing tennis a couple of weeks ago, and our tennis season was the most ridiculous thing ever. She never played tennis before. Her and her friend, they'd been playing for like 5 weeks by the time the season was getting close to being over, and they were just destroying people. It was hilarious, And I loved watching it because they'd have these little meetings before the game. Yeah, how long have you been playing tennis? Oh, I've been playing tennis for like 8 years or 9 years. And you'd see them ask, Haley and her friend how long he has been playing tennis. And they would be like, we've been playing tennis for like 5 weeks or 6 weeks. And you would see that the other team get this grin on their face, thinking we're about to smash these guys. And then the match would start, and Haley and Kaylin, they're just super athletes. They're just athletic, and it's ridiculous. And they're very unorthodox. And we have no tennis etiquette. But you would see them begin to go up in points on the other team, and the other team would do the, they would drop their shoulders. They would start nitpicking at each other. That you would hear their coaches start yelling at them, and they were just spilling the negativity all over the place. And so we see that. Oh, but what I was going to say was her and Haley, I'm looking over there because that's where her bedroom is, and she's going to sleep, but that's just beside the point. There was a ball that was hit very shallow, and her friend were both running towards it, and Haley tripped off of her friend's racket and got this big wound on her knee. And we told her, take care of it, or we're going to have to, scrub it out real good. You soap it and make sure nothing happens. And we gave her a chance to be able to take care of it herself. And a couple of days later, we look at it, and it's like, that's green stuff growing on it, right? What's oozing out of it is infection. That's another way to say it. What's oozing out of you? What's coming out of you is what's inside of you. So one of Jesus's followers later on, after Jesus would be crucified and then resurrected, one of Jesus's followers later on, he would have some words that he would be talking about this very thing. And we find that in the book of Galatians. Again, if you got a Bible in front of you, go to the table of contents and find the book of Galatians, chapter 5. If you need to hit pause, do so. But here's what it says in the book of Galatians. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such thing there is no law. Now think about those two lists. I'm going to read them again. Here's the first one. Jesus said, out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false teachings, and slander. He said this is what defiles a person. The Apostle Paul tells us the fruits of the Spirit, and I'll explain that in a second, but the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Now, if you were just to stop and think for a second, when you get bumped, when it comes out, which list does it look more like? Right? Does it look more like the things that Jesus say are that defile us? Or does it look more like this list of things that the Apostle Paul talks about? See, he says these are the fruits of the Spirit. And what that means is it's not going to happen for you automatically. Fruit has to grow. Right? Our youngest daughter loves fruit, all kinds of fruit. It's her thing. You got blueberries in the house, she's eating blueberries. You got cherries in the house, she's eating cherries. You've got, we learned tonight that pineapple does not look good to her, but that's the first time I think I've ever heard that. She was eating apples with Kim the other night. She just loves fruit. But you know what you don't have? You don't have fruit. It takes time to grow. And for things to grow, if you've done any kind of tried to start a garden, we've tried to start mini gardens. We don't have green thumbs. We murder plants. It's ridiculous. But if you've ever done any type of gardening before, you know it takes time. You've got to go out there and you've got to weed. You've got to put fertilizer on it, right? And just like that, we have to go through some things. We have to go through some crap We have to put ourselves in some times when we get bumped, and we have to purposely choose the things that Paul's talking about if we want those fruits to begin to grow in our life. Now, he calls them the fruits of the Spirit. He says this is what Jesus was like when he came. Whenever he resurrected, whenever he went up to heaven, he gave us this thing called the Holy Spirit. And that's what's inside of his followers. And so if you're one of his followers, he goes, you have the ability to cultivate these characteristics in your life, but you have to choose them. See, what comes natural to me, and I said this earlier, is when I'm bumped, or maybe even a more realistic example is when someone bumps my wife, I want to bump back, but not like this, not with kindness. I want to bump back out of frustration. I want to bump back, and I want to let them know what's coming out of me at that moment is how frustrated I am that you weren't paying attention, that you are inconsiderate, that I'm mad, right? Or, and I'm getting better at this, but when I'm at one of my kids' sporting events and it's not going well, and we don't make excuses in our house. We fight, but every now and then, right? And there's me justifying. Every now and then you get this official, and it's like he's just got it out for your team, and my kids get bumped, and what wants to come out of me isn't kindness, right? It's venom right back. It's anger right back. And I want to give the guy a piece of my mind, or I want to give the girl a piece of my mind. And I like to joke about the fact that I'm so glad that there wasn't this kind of a thing, the technology, there wasn't smartphones, there wasn't Facebook, whenever I was first getting into coaching, because I would be so embarrassed by how I responded in some of those situations. And what I'm trying to do in my life is cultivate these characteristics that the Apostle Paul calls the fruits of the Spirit. Just like every time that you lie, it becomes easier to lie. Every time that you choose kindness, that's what grows inside of you. Every time that someone's not kind towards you and you choose to be kind back towards them, the kindness fruit grows. Every time someone's not lovely towards you, not loving towards you, takes advantage of you, and you still respond with love, the love fruit grows. Every time that someone's not gentle and you choose gentleness back, the gentle fruit grows in you. And it becomes easier and easier and easier as you decide that you're going to go through the manure and allow these fruits to grow in your life. But every time you look at the other list, every time that you slander, every time that you talk about somebody and they're not around, every time you've got evil thoughts, right? I'm not even to mention the big things that it talks about, like murder and theft, right? Not even to mention those. It's weird that it has things like evil thoughts next to murder, but Jesus goes, this is what defiles you. This is if you are partaking in the evil, if you're partaking in slander, if you're partaking in lying, that's what's growing in you. And what comes out of you is what you allow to grow inside of you. So I don't know if our little community, this thing that we're starting, I don't know if we're going to change the whole world by what we're doing. But I do know that you can change your world. Because as I've tried to cultivate these things into my life, I'm so much happier. I sleep better, because that's whenever you spill on somebody, that's the thing that keeps you up at night. Whenever you respond in kindness, you sleep better. And Jesus says, look, and let me say this: if you're like me, what you go is, I don't have that capacity in my life. I cannot do what you're talking about right now. I cannot show goodness when someone's showing me evil. I cannot show self-control, right? What I want to be is out of control because they were yelling at me or they were out of control towards me. And so I want to be out of control right back. I don't want to show self-control. I want to be out of control, and I want to respond in frustration and anger, and I want to tell that guy where to go. And Paul says, no, 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 no. What we have to do is you have to do your best to respond like this, and they're going to retaliate, and there's going to come a point to where you go, I just don't have any more capacity to show kindness to this guy. What we have to do is we have to learn to look at people the way that Jesus saw people. What's funny to me about that initial story that we looked at is it wasn't what good church people would say, and I'm saying that mockingly, all the bad people out there that was attacking Jesus. It was the church people that were attacking Jesus. And if you're like me, at times we can get a little chip on our shoulder, and we can like what they were doing. We can look around and we can go, if they would just listen to me, their life would be so much better. They would be happier. Right? Everything would be more simple for them. Everything would be great for them if they would just listen to me. But that's not how Jesus ever looked at people. Here's what it says. Let me flip over here real quick. Matthew chapter 9. Again, if you need to hit pause, hit pause. Here's what it says in Matthew chapter 9. This is phenomenal. When Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. It said that when Jesus was approaching Jerusalem, when he was out doing his thing, he was out teaching, he was out performing miracles, he was out trying to help people, he was telling them the message of the kingdom of heaven, about how they don't have to stay stuck in defilement, they don't have to have all this junk inside of them, that they really can choose a better path, they really can choose to live in love, they can really choose to live in kindness, they can really choose, instead of being divisive, they can choose to make peace with people. At a minimum, they don't have to partake in the divisiveness. He said, it says that Jesus looked at the people and he wasn't mad at them, right? He wasn't doing what the religious people were doing to him or what the religious people were doing to each other. It said he looked at them as harassed and helpless. It said he had compassion on them and that they were like sheep without a shepherd. What if we began to look at people like that? What if we began to look at people that were spilling all over us and just thought, they must be going through a hard time. There must be something happening in their life that's causing them to react this way. Somebody's hurt them in their past, right? I try to, right? The place where maybe I get the most frustrated is when I'm driving, on either 270 or on 55. If you're not from the St. Louis area, those are some of the busier, more ridiculous highways in the area. And someone cuts me off, and I want to go, I want to, tell them that they're number one. I don't. But what I've tried to reprogram myself, what I've tried to grow, what I've tried to cultivate in my life is to learn to believe maybe there's an emergency. Maybe it's a dad and he's trying to get to the hospital to get to where his wife is and she's about to give birth. Just something positive, trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm trying to look at people and to have compassion for them, just as Jesus did for the people that were the everyday, the ordinary people, the people that some of them maybe wanted something to do with God, and a lot of them wanted nothing to do with God. What I'm trying to do is when I'm bumped, what I'm trying to is to have compassion on that person and respond with one of the fruits that Paul talks about: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. And again, if you respond like that, and if you decide that you're going to lock arms with us, because this is the stuff that we talk about all the time. If you're going to lock arms with us, I'm not sure that we're going to change the whole world, but I can promise you, you're going to change your world. You're going to change, just like I would tell the kids, you could change your classroom. You could change the culture of where you work. You could change your classroom. You could change the sports team that you play on. If you play softball, you could change. He said, like I said, you could change your family life if you'll allow God to grow in you. If you'll allow your heavenly Father to grow the fruits of the Spirit in you, simply by choosing to respond like this. And so, what I want to do is we're wrapping up this inaugural, this our first lesson for the new church. I really hope that you believe that we can create a world worth living in. If you don't believe it for yourself, take a look at your kids. And I'm not one to use a lot of guilt. I'm going to right now. What kind of world do you want to leave for your kids? Do you want to leave one for them that looks like hate and divisiveness? Because if you choose to respond like the people that Jesus was confronting, that's the direction that you're moving your world. But if you'll choose to respond the way that the Apostle Paul says and allow your Heavenly Father to grow these fruits in your life, you really are moving him towards something that's so much better for him. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, God, I'm excited. I'm excited for the possibility of those that allow this message deep into their heart. For the people that know me the best, they know that I struggle. I'm a broken and I'm flawed, and sometimes I lose my temper. Sometimes I jokingly say that I lose my mind. It feels like I black out. It feels like there's no possible way that I can respond with any of the fruits of the Spirit. And then Jesus drops that little thought on me. Look at them, see them as I see them. And for me, that changes everything. And so, God, I pray that you give us that are a part of Community 618, and I pray that this message gets broader than that, but I pray that you give us the ability to see the people that bump us just like you see them, with compassion and needing love and needing joy and needing someone to be patient with them and needing someone to stop and walk alongside of them just as you do for us. Give us the courage to choose a better path, and give us the wisdom to choose you when everything in us wants to choose what seems best to us. It's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen. Have a great day. I hope to get to see you in the very near future at one of our in-person events.